there is a typewritten question here. It's not related to today's talk, but this person hopes that Long Po could enlighten. Is the 5 lower fetters the same as the 5 hindrances?
Well, they're related, but they're not exactly the same thing. The hindrances come and go. They're very impermanent. They keep returning, unfortunately. They're kind of niggling, but they, you can overcome them through developing samatha meditation in particular. You're using wisdom as well, reflection, but samatha meditation is developed to overcome these 5 hindrances, which are briefly sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor and dullness, restlessness, agitation, anxiety, and skeptical doubt. So when you put effort into your meditation and develop mindfulness on an object, such as the breath, gradually or quickly, hopefully, but at least gradually, you let go of these 5 hindrances and reach a state of samadhi, one-pointedness, where the hindrances have temporarily disappeared. But having done that, the 5 lower fetters may still be there, of course. Still an unenlightened person. They haven't gone yet. And the 5 fetters are Sakkaya Ditthi, self-view, the view of this body and mind as a self or inner self or outside of a self, but self-view in one form or another. Skeptical doubt, again, attachment to practices and rituals and conditioning, what we call Silapata Paramasa, and then sensual desire and ill will, again, Patiga and Kamaraka. These 5 lower fetters are fetters, so they're really stuck in the mind. There's really deep conditioning. Obviously, the roots are in ignorance, avijja, but they're deep conditioning of the mind that even if you temporarily get beyond the 5 hindrances, they're still there until you've uprooted them. And you can only uproot them from developing the wisdom, the clear knowledge and vision of the way things are, and breaking through, first of all, the 3 fetters that the Sotapanna, the stream enterer, breaks through. Sakkaya Ditthi, self-view. Right, Venerable Kondanya, on the night of the Buddha gave the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he had this insight that everything that is subject to arising is subject to cessation. So meaning this body, feelings, perceptions, thought formations, sense consciousness, they're all things that arise, so they pass away. So there's no lasting self in those things, because they arise, they pass away. It's not that there's nothing there, but they arise, they pass away. So he had that insight, and this led to abandoning the first fetter of Sakkaya Ditthi, and the other fetters at the same time, Silapata Paramasa, Vicikicca. So to do that, at that moment, he would have been beyond the 5 hindrances as well. So it goes together. To abandon the fetters, you also have to abandon the 5 hindrances. But having abandoned those 3 fetters, Venerable Kondanya still had to experience some Gama Raka, sensual desire and ill will, Patiga, returning. The last 2 of the lower fetters were completely abandoned at that time. Only the anagami does that. Even the sakadagami, what they call the once returner, they diminish the intensity of their sensual desire and ill will, but they still have a bit. Only the anagami is completely abandoned, and when they abandon all attachment to the physical body. Because as we know, lust and sensual desire and aversion and anger, hatred, they're centered around the body and the attachment to the body. So the anagami has given them up completely. But to give up any fetter, you need to be able to contemplate from a place of detached awareness, samadhi, to develop insight. So at that time, the 5 hindrances are in abeyance, they've gone quiet, so that you're able to contemplate and see things clearly and abandon, develop the wisdom to see through, see the impermanent nature of body and mind, see the unsatisfactory nature, see the lack of self, see through the conditioning process. But the hindrances can return. After, Sotapanna, a stream enterer can still experience hindrances. Only the anagami will have abandoned the hindrances. So, they're related, very close, and sometimes it can be used in some ways. You could use them interchangeably, but they have the reason they're described differently as hindrances or fetters is because they are also performing a slightly different role in terms of the suffering of the mind and what pulls us back from liberation or prevents us from reaching liberation.
Sadhu Lampa. Upo has a question. Upo, are you able to unmute, Upo?
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Ajahn, for the talk today. And it was very timely. And after quite some time, I joined with the talk. And I have a question. Actually, I was not well for a few months, and continuously all my family was suffering from some illness for like 6 months. And but I was practicing meditation and listening to the Dhamma talk, but I didn't feel any uncomfortable because I am having some illness called Crohn's disease in my bowels, and it is so painful. But I'm so happy after every meditation, and I could feel much better. And I'm still getting medication. After that, my son, elder son, got some illness called fetters disease on his leg. So because of these continuous illnesses, we went and met one monk who was reading the palm reading and was reading horoscope. And he said that there are some late departed relatives, and she had been born in as a hungry ghost, and she's troubling and she's looking up, she's following us, the whole family. Sometimes she's coming to our home and she's going to another house, and likewise she's trying to I think request the what do you call, the merit. And my question is it possible that departed relatives can cause this kind of, like, badly to human? And if they have been born in heavenly realm, can they help to overcome these kind of things? Because it was told by a monk, I have a belief, and I know, because I'm believing that hungry ghosts and devas are there and they can help people. Can they harm like this way? Thank you, Ajahn.
Well, if you read the words of the Buddha, then you'd probably have to say yes, it's possible. But one thing to remember is, if you can't see something, you can't see a ghost or a deva, that opens up a few possibilities. One is that your imagination can take over, or just theorizing of the mind. It could be this, could be that, speculation, or you're also open to somebody else's manipulation. They could say, "Oh, you have a ghost bothering you," and if you can't see it, you can't be absolutely sure whether it's true or not. So always bear that in mind. These things could be true, but they also may not be true. So it's not sure. Probably the safest ground to come from or stand on is what you can see and know for sure. So say you have illness, maybe this is partly the influence of ghosts, who knows. But if you have illness, you certainly have many things you can do. Obviously you get treatment from a doctor, try and seek out good medical treatment, but then you have to look after your mind, your relationship between your own mind, your attitude, your view, how you're relating to this illness. And most people, because they're attached and identify with their body as self, when they're ill, they start to feel aversion, depression, sadness. Those are the things you can know very quickly and start to remedy through skillful action. So you can keep precepts when you're ill, you can listen to Dhamma when you're ill, you can meditate when you're ill, you can maybe do some forms of dana, generosity, when you're ill. What we've been talking about today, merit making, you can still do it in one form or another to the best of your ability when you're ill. That's what I would focus on. But then there's no harm if you have a trustworthy advisor who says you've got a ghost bothering you or is affecting you somehow. Well, there's no harm in making merit and sharing that with that ghost. If it's true or not, you don't 100% know, but you can still do it. But I would say put more effort into practicing mindfulness directed to your body, the feelings, the illness, looking after your mind, not falling into the negative mental states of aversion, depression, stress, and so on. I would make that your priority, because that's going to be your number one source of suffering while you're ill, is all the worries and the doubts and the way you're having to deal with it. It's so easy to become stressed and sometimes we just become despairing, don't we? When we're ill, we just give up, we start crying, we have all kinds of problems. And I wouldn't rush to say, "Oh, this must be because of a ghost." If maybe there's some ghost there or not, it doesn't really matter. You still can know your own mind and your own thoughts, your own emotions for yourself. I would make that your priority. But there's no harm in doing a merit-making ceremony and sharing the merit with your relative who may be a hungry ghost. There's certainly no harm in doing that. But I would put more effort into your own practice of bhavana and looking after your mind, trying to keep it in a wholesome state. That's what I would focus on.
Thank you, Ajahn. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
There is a question here, and this person is asking, what are some activities young children can do to make merit? They like their games and toys a lot.
Well, you can try and make it as enjoyable as you can. So you can make some food to share with either Sangha or some good cause when there's some charity event or some event that requires food. You could get the kids all helping to make food for that event and going off and doing their bit to help. If there's some way of doing some simple volunteering, very simple tasks. You can take kids along to do simple acts of kindness at an orphanage or a animal shelter, or all these kind of things. You can be creative, getting kids to do things for other people or for animals in small ways, big ways, just depending on your situation, what time you've got, the resources you've got, and so on. You can get kids to sit down and do 5 minutes of metta meditation, spreading thoughts of kindness, and you can get them to list all the people they want to help. Maybe they know somebody who needs some help, someone who's sick, or someone who's sad, or somebody who has had an accident or something. You can use the framework of what the Buddha taught about making merit, so the practice of dana, sila, bhavana, helping others, even listening to Dhamma. You know, we can find skillful ways to read a Dhamma book, a Dhamma story with kids, talk about it, read it to them, or take them somewhere where they can hear some simple Dhamma on their level, and so on. You use the same framework that adults use, but you just develop it in a way that's suitable for their age group, whatever their age is. And there's certainly nothing wrong with teaching kids to be kind. Sometimes we lead through example. Sometimes we are doing things and we're aware that kids will see that. Then they may ask questions and they may want to follow along or join in. Or even if they don't, sometimes just them seeing the good that we are doing, we're trying to practice good, lead our life in a good way, and you're doing it in a way so they can witness that and see that. That's also, you know, in a sort of passive way or an unconscious way, they absorb a lot of Dhamma that way. So we have to be creative and just think about what kind of example we're setting our kids, what activities we're introducing them to, what are we passing on to our kids. You know, we're teaching them as much as we're teaching ourselves. So you might say that's the primary role of a parent, isn't it? To teach and pass on the Dhamma to kids. Nowadays, everything's so materialistic. You know, you just go to do your education to get your top exam marks so you can get a good job and make more money. Well, that's important as well. I'm not saying it's not important, but we want to teach our kids to be kind human beings and to, you know how to have compassion, know how to forgive, know how to care for each other, help each other as well. Know how to practice mindfulness, know how to let go of stressful thoughts and worries as well. You know, if you can teach them in this all-round way, all the better, and that will help their studies and all the other things, the more sort of materialistic and that side of things. It will be helped if spiritually they have a sense of spiritual well-being, inner well-being. That's only going to help them in the other things they do in life.
Thank you, Brother Longpo. Longpo, do you still have time? It's 12:30 now. Do you still have time? It's 12:30.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. I thought you said, do I still have tiger? I was wondering, where is my tiger?
So maybe we'll take two more last questions, and let me read it out to you. This person's question is, Dear Longpo, I have so much anumodana to you for your teaching, guidance, and compassion to help us see the Dhamma. I recently watched a documentary about the bhikkhunis in Thailand. I would appreciate your views about the plight of women who think that the Thai Sangha are not supportive enough of their intention to practice as Theravada bhikkhunis. What is your advice when faced with such controversial news and views?
Well, obviously, the Buddha encouraged us to treat each other well, whether we're monks, nuns, bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, or lay people, or Buddhists or non-Buddhists. You know, that's the starting point. Treat each other with respect, kindness, tolerance. But we also, you know, in Thailand, they have a very old tradition based on the Vinaya. So the understanding of the Thai Sangha is, or the accepted, agreed understanding at the moment still is that bhikkhunis, the original bhikkhunis from the time where the Buddha died out, This is a huge question which we probably can't really go into here, but the original bhikkhuni lineage died out, so then the nuns, the modern nuns, are not quite properly set up as bhikkhunis. That's the current view. But actually, there's lots of bhikkhuni. The modern lineage of bhikkhunis. There's lots of them now in Thailand. There's the white robe nuns, and then there's the bhikkhuni lineage, and there's also 10 precept nuns. There's many different centers, monasteries, and a lot of them are being supported by monks. I'm sure there are many cases where they're perhaps discriminated against or have difficulties as well, of course, but there's a lot of practice going on, good practice going on, and that's what you have to focus on. Encourage more of that, particularly more meditation, study of the Dhamma, the Vinaya, the meditation, whatever the ordination that women have received. Just encourage and support them in their practice wherever they are, in Thailand or outside. I've been lucky enough to meet some nuns who have been very wise, peaceful people who have attained samadhi, attained insight, attained the noble path. So it's still possible for men and women. The nuns I met who have seemed to be attained have actually all been what we call 8 precept nuns, although they often don't use money, but officially they're 8 precept nuns. That's just something to bear in mind. If you set your mind on the practice, it's possible even as an 8 preceptor to realize Maggappalinibbana as a man or a woman. Of course, anything we can do to improve the conditions of female practitioners is good. So, do what you can, wherever you are, do what you can. And treat people with respect, with kindness, of course, with compassion. But the way of practice for Maggappalinibbana is still there. It's open to everyone. And if you have a place to practice, just take your opportunity and put all your efforts into that, because you can receive the highest fruit still. It's possible.
That was so beautifully put, Longpo. There's a last question here. Does an equanimous person have feelings of joy or sadness? Is equanimity similar to calmness?
Well, you might say there's levels of equanimity or types of equanimity. So probably our first experience of equanimity is when we practice some meditation of one sort or another and gain more mindfulness. You experience more detachment towards your physical and mental experience. Detachment meaning you're aware and knowing things, but you're not reacting with aversion or pleasure to things. You're just knowing, it's like this. This is pleasant, this is unpleasant, this hurts, this is good, and so on. So you can, just a few moments of mindfulness can already give you some equanimity, some calm. And then we also get equanimity from wisdom. So particularly when you practice what we call upekkha brahmavihara, that's based on understanding of karma, that all beings are the owners of their karma. I am the owner of my karma, you're the owner of your karma. And we are born as individuals. We have an individual citta or consciousness. And even though we help each other, influence each other, and of course can harm each other as well, we are individuals in that sense. We receive and make karma individually. So that leads to equanimity in the sense, whatever we experience ourselves and others around us experience, we can reflect, well, this is the results of my karma, or that's the results of their karma. And that brings a certain equanimity towards events and things, and especially when you want to help someone and maybe there's nothing much you can do because they're receiving fruits of karma and you just have to accept that. So that's another kind of equanimity. And there's the equanimity of 4th jhana, which is a really good equanimity, purity of mindfulness. Say you practice anapanasati and develop 4th jhana, you get to a really cool, peaceful state. So if you come out of deep jhana and practice insight meditation, reflect on the impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless nature of phenomena, then that equanimity is really powerful for developing the 7 factors of enlightenment. And as you cultivate the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Bojjhanga, you develop the highest kind of equanimity of the path, which is equanimity as an enlightenment factor, where you're just equanimous towards physical, mental phenomena, particularly these 5 khandhas you have, and see through the selfless nature of them, ultimately, to let go of, as we were talking about earlier, you begin by letting go of the first 3 fetters. That's one level of equanimity, you might say, and then as you let go of the other fetters, you reach the highest equanimity of an arahant, who's detached, fully detached from the world, their citta. They can still appreciate what is happiness and sadness. It's not like they're completely unfeeling or uncaring, because they have no more anger or selfishness, so they have a mind full of compassion, but it's backed by equanimity or non-attachment. There's no delusion. So they understand when somebody dies, it's sad, but they won't necessarily cry because they're not lost in the sadness. They know the situation is sad, the emotions are sad, but they're not attached to them with a sense of self. And I think this is something we can only, guess at until one has reached that level of practice, one is an arahant, then one will know for oneself. But as we're practicing, we get glimpses of it, don't we? When the mind is calm, you can see sometimes you can really accept very difficult things that are difficult to accept, like death and the loss of a loved one, or the sadness in the world, when you see people suffering in wars or famine or disaster or whatever it may be. When your mind is maturing in the practice, there are times when you can be very equanimous to suffering, but it's not coming from coldness or non-caring. It's just you accept this is the way things are and your mind is quiet. But really only the arahant knows full equanimity, don't they? They're the only ones who are completely detached from the world.